There's something going on behind the scenes with the Ravens right now that completely changes how you look at this team. And the craziest part? This didn't come from rumors. It didn't come from insiders. It came straight from DeCosta himself. The general manager basically admitted there's a serious issue on this roster. And this is not some small problem you can just brush off. And when a GM talks like that, you already know. There's way more going on beneath the surface. What exactly went wrong? Why hasn't it been fixed yet? And more importantly, how does this affect a team that's supposed to be chasing a Super Bowl? Because the deeper you look into this, the more it starts to feel like the Ravens could be dealing with a real risk before the season even kicks off. There's really no way around it. And to me, the biggest part of this story is hearing DeCosta openly admit the plan didn't work. He said it straight up. It didn't work out for us this past weekend. That tells you everything. The Ravens walked into the draft knowing exactly what they needed, and walked out without fixing it. That alone says a lot about how things broke down internally, and being completely honest with you, that's frustrating. This wasn't some hidden need or a secondary issue. Center was one of the most obvious priorities on this roster. That's the guy who controls the offensive line, sets protections, keeps everything in sync up front. When you leave that spot unresolved, it's not just one missing piece. It puts the entire structure of your offense at risk. Now put that into context. This isn't a rebuilding team trying to figure things out. This is a team with real Super Bowl expectations. And when you go into the draft with a specific mission like that and come out empty-handed, it feels like a missed opportunity. To me, this is exactly the kind of detail that separates a good team from one that's truly ready to win it all. And that's where things start to get even more serious. Because if the draft didn't fix it, then the solution has to come from somewhere else. And that's when the conversation around trades really starts heating up. This is where things shift to another level. It's not just about acknowledging the mistake anymore. It's about how you respond to it. And DeCosta made that clear when he said, "I think there may be some potential trades we can look at and some other things we can do to address that position." That's not just a generic comment. That's a GM openly telling you they're actively exploring real moves. To me, that statement says a lot more than it might seem at first. When a general manager brings up trades publicly, he's basically telling you two things. First, he's not fully confident in the current options. Second, he's willing to spend assets, whether that's draft capital or players, to fix the problem. And that's a big deal. And if you look at where the Ravens are right now, it makes total sense. This team is in a championship window. You can't afford to wait on raw talent to develop or hope someone figures it out mid-season. A trade becomes a necessary shortcut, not out of desperation, but because of ambition. It's the kind of move teams make when they know exactly what they're chasing. But decisions like this also reveal something important behind the scenes. Because if a trade is being seriously considered, it means what they currently have just isn't giving them the level of confidence they need. And that's where the concern really starts to grow. To me, this is one of the most important parts of the entire situation, because it completely changes the tone of what happened during the draft. When DeCosta says, "It didn't work out for us this past weekend," that doesn't sound like a routine explanation. It sounds like a direct admission that the plan failed. And in the NFL, that kind of transparency is rare, especially coming from an experienced GM. What stands out the most here is the urgency behind those words. This isn't the usual "we believe in our guys" type of message. It's not about patience or development. What he's really saying is, we know this needs to be fixed now. Because when you leave a gap at a position as critical as center, the impact doesn't stay isolated. It affects the entire offense, from protection to timing to execution. Another key factor here is the competitive context. The Ravens don't have room for mistakes like this. They're firmly in a Super Bowl window, and every position needs to be stable before the season begins. When the GM openly acknowledges that the plan didn't work, it immediately increases internal pressure to find a solution, and that directly shapes how aggressive this team might be moving forward. And that's why this statement connects directly to what we're seeing on the roster, because when there's this level of urgency, it usually means the current options just aren't inspiring enough confidence. When you take a closer look at the Ravens' current depth chart, it becomes pretty clear why this is such a concern. The names are there: Danny Pinter, Jovan Gwynn, but none of them come in as unquestioned starters. Around the league, these are players typically viewed as depth pieces, rotational options, Guys who can fill in when needed but aren't expected to hold down the position at a high level over an entire season. And being real with you, that's a major red flag for a contender. It's not just about having someone available to play, it's about having someone you trust not to disrupt the entire offense. The offensive line relies on consistency, communication, and chemistry. Without a solid presence at center, the risk of instability goes way up. Gwynn does have a connection with new OL coach Dwayne Ledford from their time together in Atlanta, which is interesting. But familiarity with a system doesn't guarantee performance on the field. It might help with the transition, but it doesn't replace experience or the ability to handle complex defensive looks week after week. And once you recognize those limitations at the top of the depth chart, the situation gets even more concerning, because now you're looking at internal options that come with even bigger question marks. All right, we're already past the halfway point of this video. But before we keep going, I noticed you haven't hit the like button yet, and that really matters, because it helps YouTube keep showing Ravens content like this to you. So if you enjoy staying updated with the latest Ravens news, analysis, and everything happening around the team, go ahead and hit that like button. It really helps the channel grow, and it's completely free. I appreciate it. Once the more experienced names don't fully convince you, the next layer of options becomes even more uncertain. Corey Bullock came in as an undrafted free agent in 2024, which already points to a long-term development profile rather than immediate impact. Nick Dawkins falls into a similar category, more of a project than a ready-to-go starter. Then you have the possibility of moving someone like Evan Burnson to center, which to me clearly shows how much improvisation could be involved here. Switching positions on the offensive line isn't simple, especially at center, where you're responsible for reading defenses, making calls, and maintaining constant communication with the quarterback. When you put all of this together, the picture becomes pretty clear. The Ravens would be relying on accelerated development or emergency adjustments to fill a critical role. And for a team with Super Bowl expectations, that's a dangerous bet. It's not just about talent, it's about timing. And timing matters when your margin for error is this small. And that's exactly why the focus doesn't stay limited to the current roster. Because when internal options don't provide enough confidence, the attention naturally shifts to what's available outside the building. Yes, there are still some names out there, guys like Tristan Colin and Andre James, and on the surface, that might look like a possible solution. But when you dig deeper, it becomes clear that these options come with limitations as well. These aren't players who step in with zero questions or guaranteed high-level performance. To me, the fact that they're still available at this stage of the offseason says a lot about how the market views them. If they were seen as clear-cut answers, they likely would have already been picked up, maybe even by the Ravens earlier in the process. That doesn't mean they can't contribute, but it does mean there's uncertainty attached, and that's what reinforces the idea that Baltimore might be aiming higher. This isn't just about filling a spot. It's about making sure that spot doesn't become a problem during the season. And when that's the goal, teams usually look for more reliable, proven options, which often only become available through trades. Of course, that comes at a cost, whether it's money or draft capital. But it also reflects how serious the team is about fixing this issue, especially when you consider the most important factor right now: time. At the end of the day, everything points to one simple reality: time is running out. The season isn't going to wait for the Ravens to figure this out slowly. The center position needs to be locked in, stable, and functioning at a high level before week 1, because any instability there directly affects the entire offense. And to me, this is the kind of issue that can completely change the direction of a season. An offense without solid protection loses rhythm, loses confidence, becomes predictable. The quarterback starts facing constant pressure, the playbook gets limited, and suddenly one specific weakness starts impacting the entire system. The key thing here is that the Ravens seem fully aware of the situation. DeCosta's comments, the openness to trades, the acknowledgement that the draft didn't solve it, all of it points to a team that understands exactly what's at stake. Now it's no longer about identifying the problem. It's about executing the solution. Because no matter how they choose to fix it, trade, free agency, or even an internal surprise, one thing is clear: this needs to be solved quickly. As things stand right now, it's hard to look at this position and say a Super Bowl contender is fully complete. What's clear after all of this is that the Ravens are dealing with a real issue, and that's not an overstatement. Eric DeCosta's own words make it obvious that the plan fell short at a critical position, and when that happens at center, the impact goes far beyond just one spot on the field. To me, the biggest question now isn't the mistake itself, it's how the team responds to it. Because yes, this roster has talent. Yes, the ambition is there, but in the NFL, none of that holds up if the foundation isn't solid. And right now, looking at this situation, there's a level of risk that can't be ignored. If they fix it quickly, the Ravens stay right in the Super Bowl conversation. If they don't, this could easily become the one weakness that holds them back. Now I want to hear from you. Do you think the Ravens need to go all in on a trade, or can they trust someone already on the roster? Drop your thoughts in the comments, because this decision could shape the entire season. And if you're a true Ravens fan and love keeping up with everything happening around the team, don't leave this video without sharing it with a friend who's just as passionate. They're definitely going to enjoy this. See those videos on your screen right now? I picked the first one especially for you, and the other is recommended by YouTube. Go check them out, and I'll see you in the next video.